Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm working on a African Tic Tac Toe board. Here is my inspiration piece for this project. I like to start off by apologizing for how this video is starting off. I seem to either misplace or deleted the first part of the video where I usually show the products that I'm using. So for this tic-tac-toe board, you'll see later in the video, I'm using a plexiglass that I got from Walmart, and it's about 16 by 16 inch square. And I'm also using strips of rhinestone stickers that I use to lay out the individual squares. And I'm also using a rubber Africa silicone mold, and it's a good mold, as you can see here, but the mold is around $30 each, and to me that could be kind of pricey. And so because I need a number of African pieces for this project, I came up with an alternative way that you guys could do that for a lot less. So in this alternative mold making, I came with the idea of using wax paper, and I got this wax paper from the Dollar Tree. And the wax paper itself is okay, but it is from the Dollar Tree. So if you decide to do this project for yourself, I would suggest using a stronger wax paper. Make sure you use the wax side because part of it did stick to the paper, or use plastic as the bottom. And I'm using some silicone that I got from Ace Hardware. You could pretty much get this silicone at any supply store. And I'm using a cutout of the shape of Africa. I decided to do it in both directions because if you use resin before, you know that when you start adding things like glitter or beads, or anytime you're trying to cover something with resin, it has a tendency to sink to the bottom. So your design, you really won't really see until it dries, but it usually will be more reflective as things sink towards the bottom. So I'm just taking the shape of Africa. I've traced it out with a pen. I'm using the silicone to trace around the shape. I end up using around 4 or 5 layers just to make sure it was nice and thick, so that way the resin wouldn't leak out. It only needs 30 minutes to set, but I let it set for a day just to be sure. And now I'm going to be using my resin and different pigments to make my Africa shapes. Also, you may want to be cautious when using resin as far as the pigments that you choose to use. I've discovered that not all pigments are created equal. If you can, it would be best to use pigment that's designed for resin. You can also use paint as well, but be very careful. You can just use a couple of drops because a little does go a long way. And depending on what you try to mix with resin, if it's not complementary to it, then your resin won't harden and it just becomes a complete mess. And as you saw, I'm using different types of paint and resin to create this project. But I noticed, like, for the white that I want to use, I had to get a white that was designed for resin, and I got that from Dick Blick's Art Supply, which is a higher end art supply store, because white paint was just disastrous. So that's just a tip you guys can keep in mind with working with any resin. And here is another tip and or suggestion. This would also be a great alternative for making coasters. So if you want to make some African shaped coasters or maybe some African symbol coasters, you can use this idea of using silicone and drawing out the shape and resin to make that work. And here is the plexi board that I got from Amazon that I was talking about earlier. And so now I'm just going to remove the back of the paper so you can see how transparent it is. And I got these acrylic letter X's from Joann's Fabrics inside their letter section. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to watch this video. If you enjoy this content, please be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. And also feel free to leave me a comment below. Thank you again for watching.